just sitting here minding my own business. What kind of young women is gonna come down to Fishbone after seeing that? It's gonna be flooded. Careless love. Love, careless love. Can't see what love means.
Well, Twin Oaks is one big experiment. Basically, Twin Oaks is setting out to do two things. One of them is to create a society fit for humans to live in. The other one is to create humans fit to live in that society. Now, neither of these basic goals lend themselves to easy formulae. And so in order to get to them, you've got to experiment step by step by step. Yeah. Well, people aren't equal. Some people are a lot more intelligent, other people are better looking. Some people have more experience and different experiences and so forth. We don't pretend that they are. The idea of equality, we define it as no member envying or having cause to envy another member. So when you go to the dinner table and one person piles his plate this high and the other person just takes one little piece of meat and a little pile of rice, if that's all that person wants, then as far as we're concerned, they're getting an equal supper. The ideal equality is for everyone to take as much as he wants. And it wouldn't matter if some people had a lot more. The problems with equality come when the quantities are restricted, when you've got an economy of shortages. Now, there are some things that are just naturally in shortage at all times. For example, at a meeting, there's a shortage of airtime. No one person can speak more than just so much without getting on other people's nerves and bumping into other egos.
We're a community that began almost 5 years ago based on the book or the principles in the book Walden 2 by Skinner. If any of you have read that, that was kind of the initial impetus for people getting together and talking about trying to start a community. There was a big conference out of which a small group of people decided to try and do a thing on the land. And so in June of 1967, 8 people came here and bought this piece of property and began living here. So the land is 123 acres, and it gives us one of the 3 sources of our economic support, and that is our agricultural activities. We both have animals and raise crops. The animals are primarily cattle. We have about 18 head of cattle, dairy and beef. And we have pigs, and we have a few chickens. But we also have a 2-acre organic garden, which provides us with a vast amount of vegetables, all we can eat during the summertime, and then enough for us to can and freeze to last during the winter, so that we have now a big walk-in freezer which supplies us with a good part of the vegetables during the winter time. So that's one kind of leg of our economic support, the agricultural activities. Another is our small industries and crafts, the main one of which is making hammocks. You can see some outside there, and later when we walk around,
The medium stretcher that I found in the garden, I laid it across the table. Yeah, here it is. I don't know how big the points are where. That's found in the garden.
Well checked, does it have the right number of holes?
Got the right number of holes.
Huh. Somebody grabbed the wrong
Maybe we'll give them an individually aged stretcher.
Maybe you can find a mate for us to give us a sense.
Essentially, all the manager of each area of activity decides for the coming week how much work has to be done in their area. Okay, then every member has a chance to say which activities Co would prefer to do during that week. Co is a word we use to mean him or her. And then a couple of people get together and distribute all the various tasks that the managers have decided have to be done among the people in the community, giving each job to the people that are most anxious to do it, so that you pretty much get the things that you're anxious to do and that you're going to enjoy doing. And the things that you don't want to do will be given to somebody else that enjoys that more. If there's something that nobody wants to do, then everybody gets a little bit of it. And you get more credit for doing it, which kind of makes up for it. Let's say dishwashing isn't popular with hardly anybody, and I do an hour of dishwashing, I may get credit as though I had done an hour and a quarter worth of work, so that I'm psychologically reinforced in that way for the things that I really don't like to do very much.
We are forced at this point to go on outside work, to send people out of the community, either commuting daily into Richmond, or if they prefer to leave and go to Washington, or perhaps live in Richmond, or maybe go somewhere else where they have friends or relatives where they can stay and earn money for the community. In the case where they go off the premises to work on outside work, they're simply required to send back a minimum of $50 a week to the community, assuming that the rest of what they're getting, which probably won't be very much in a city anyway, they'll be needing to live on. However, the people who go into Richmond every day get whatever jobs they can possibly get their hands on. And usually what this means is that everybody gets some kind of menial job. The women end up invariably, almost, getting something like a waitress job or a secretarial job, depending on whether they have the skills. The men usually end up getting a laborer job, some kind of construction or something like that. And the idea is to hold this job for a period of 2 months, at which point you leave the job.
And on the last day don't look like very much, but after you get the money, well, it is in the age of not
Working also. And I didn't say that well.
Wow. We're adjusting constantly. Our government is constantly changing. Our methods of dealing with personal problems are changing. Our norms on various subjects change all the time, and we do it very consciously. There are a great many perfectly human characteristics, very common in the human race, which could not work out in community, and basically don't work out for the human race, don't work out for society in general. Such things as over-aggression, intense competitiveness, and so forth.
A little left over too. What's available, right?
Okay. Prepare the carcass for hoisting by first going through the breastbone. You've done it. And completing the separation of the rounds and splitting Fig 18.
What human behavior you consider design, based on the experience,
Consideration for one another. Not everyone is going to clean up after himself. And if you're a fanatic for cleanliness, you probably won't make it here. Not everyone is going to put away the tools when he's through with them. Your choices are either accept it and don't expect the tools to be where they are, or learn how to put pressure through the group on careless people. So anyway, tolerance, yes. That's the big one. actually, we do value efficiency, because the more efficient we are at a job, the sooner it'll be over with, and the more time we'll have got to do things that we'd rather do. But we don't value it above everything else. One of the things that the members here enjoy very much is the opportunity to learn new skills. And so we have on the construction site people who are just barely beginning to learn to handle a hammer, people whose wrists are weak because they've never handled one in their lives. We have people using tools they've never seen before. In particular, this is true of the women, of course. And not only in construction, we're always teaching someone to milk, and we're always teaching someone to cook. And if the lunch gets burned, it gets burned. It's worth it, because people like to do work. Work isn't just an aversive thing. Work is something that's part of life, and it's something that people really enjoy. And they especially enjoy it if it's varied and full of fresh learning experiences. So we keep those doors open, and it costs us, but we're willing to pay the price, because that's part of the good life, and the good life is, after all, what we're here for.
There must be a good 40, 50 managerships. There's at least a managership for every member here. And that makes it very convenient. It sounds like an awful bureaucracy, I'm sure. People, visitors especially, are always coming through telling us about, well, have you heard of Parkinson's Law? Do you know what happens, when you get these rabbits together? There's a managership for just about everything that you could possibly think of. The animal managership, the health managership, construction, auto maintenance, house, which involves seeing that the house is kept clean, seeing that different stock items are in the house, toilet paper, for instance. It gives everybody prestige, what the hell, I'm a manager, wow, that's neat, everybody's a manager, big deal. The decision-making process at Twin Oaks in the planners' meetings is basically that of consensus. The planners are simply not going to pass any kind of decision if it's not a consensus of the community. The community does not want it to happen. Of course, there is the veto power. The community can veto a planner's decision.
Liver, lime broiled, Islander, Indian. Now that really sounds nice. Indian.
Boy's doing a fine job.
I wonder what that would be. This will be
high protein muffins.
Small breasts.
With dates and nuts, orange, and
I'm
orange juice
stewing
and
chicken
honey.
cut up now.
So we don't have dates and nuts.
Let them eat cake.
Soy flour. It's got to be minced.
Chicken breast, chicken burger, chicory and fennel salad. No, that's not. Chicken spread, stewed, stuffed. Soup, sherry, sauteed. Oh yes, Philip Sousa. Saint Grand. Moose. Moose. No, chicken. Country Canton. Egyptian kebabs. Oh yes, my little Egyptian. Fricassee.
Fricassee.
Now see, we've done this before.
Come on, I can tell this thing all day.
I think the reason that the attempt at a utopian society makes sense today more than has made sense at certain periods in the past is that there is a very large group. I'm talking about the children of middle-class families who had the opportunity for an excellent education, to whom the establishment does not offer anything attractive. The only place for those young people is as part of huge organizations. And nothing is being offered. All doors are being closed. Adventure is closed. Not only adventure, but high moral effort, significant effort is closed off. And so they look for their own. Personally, I worked as a secretary in a big law office. I didn't especially enjoy working there. I thought the work was useless and silly. But it wasn't, and my life personally wasn't so bad that I had to escape it. The point was that the whole country, the whole world is, there is simply too much suffering. There's too much wrong, there's too much aggression, there's too much hatred, there's too much war, too much death, and 9/10 of it is unnecessary. And one wants to do something. And so you say, what can I do? I can't run for office. I haven't the qualifications or the experience. I can't perhaps write a tremendous book that will influence the nation. I can write to my congressman. I don't think that will do a lot of good. I can march in a demonstration, and they've pretty well proven that doesn't do much good. I can demonstrate by my own life that a better alternative is possible. But that would be a bigger demonstration if I had a group of people to work with me. I've got some ideas of how a society ought to be. I read about them in a book called Walden 2. They strike me as fundamentally sound, really, really good intuitions on the part of Dr. Skinner. I'd like to try them out. So it ought to be possible for us to get together as a group and work on these ideas, work them out experimentally, and come to some conclusions. Do they work or do they not work? Is equality a good idea? Is it a viable concept? Can you get people to do work without paying them money? All these fundamental socialist questions, they're not new questions. There's older socialism. But they're new in their implementation. That is, not too many groups have actually got together and, without any fundamental religion, we're fundamentally a secular group with a socialist ideal, and actually working out these problems one at a time, day after day, practical solutions to theoretical ideas.
Because young women are going to come down to Fishbone after seeing that. They're going to be flooded. Careless. Careless love.
And I came here very much a verbal and social anarchist, and I am no longer. I'm very much under the control of the group. So that's me. Other people grew up conforming to society. That was their thing, you know, and they learn other things entirely. Some people have found that they're very much freed here from restrictions that they had other places.
We aren't going to have the children raised by their biological parents alone, because we feel that, well, there are a lot of things that would be better done by more than one parent. You know, instead of having two parents, we'd like to have, I don't know, 8 or 10 or something.
Whoever is interested in being a parent.
Yeah, and a lot of people may be interested in actually bearing the children, and going through that experience, but not be interested in, in them when they're 10 years old, or not be interested in them when they're infants, but interested in them when they're 10 years old or something. So, anyway, it would be better to have people who are really interested in child raising to do that. And it's not like the parents won't be allowed to do any child raising, because they can take as much part in it as they want to. If they want to be down there like full quota, assuming that anybody's down there full quota, then, they're welcome to do that.
If it's not in a work situation, there's a tendency not to know other men, or not to make an effort to go out and to understand what other men are thinking about other subjects besides construction or whatever they happen to be doing work-wise around the community. And so this is more of an effort to get to understand men in other situations and in other fields, and to try and find out how they feel about different things, how they would feel about relationships that they are having with women, or relationships that they are or would like to have with men. It's hard to say why this is. Perhaps it comes from the old conditioning of from childhood that men simply shouldn't have relationships with other men that are any deeper than business talk. I mean, this certainly is the norm on the outside. Your intimacy goes probably as close as your work goes, and certainly any closer would more than likely make the person you're working with shy away, because this is not the norm. And of course, here, this seems to be the norm, but it's something that we want to change. That's the reason for the meetings in the first place.
Why do you want to change it? Does this mean that for many people it is undesirable?
I think that that's the consensus of the meetings, that they feel that they should be getting certainly much more out of relationships than sexual or business. It seems that those, are extremes, and it's difficult to really get into a relationship somewhere in the middle. And this goes for relationships that men would have with men and women. And perhaps after the goal of reaching some kind of verbal intimacy has been reached, men would feel very confident in going into more sexual relationships with other men.
What are you sitting in?
Sleigh.
A sleigh?
Yeah, a sleigh, reindeer. Well, this sleigh isn't pulled by reindeer. It's pulled by rats and pigeons.
By distributing all of your personal property that you brought with you to other people, and seeing that they're enjoying it certainly as much as you did, and perhaps using it more than you did, is really helpful. Because you can see that, I didn't get hurt. What do you know? I gave up my favorite possession, and by golly, I'm not hurt. And this undoubtedly carries over to your feelings towards people. That you're able to relax your feelings of jealousy. That you don't think about them as much anymore. I don't really think that that such a distribution of affection and love, having to spread it among 20 people, I don't think that this lessens the intensity, mainly because I don't believe that it's ever been figured what the human propensity towards love and affection is. It's not a given amount of energy that is distributed. It's it has the possibility of growing.
There's a frog in the tree. Eric?
Mm-hmm.
What has happened to your relationship with Josie? What is that? Do you feel it isn't?
I thought after the accident that things, at least on Josie's part, flamed up again.
I didn't know about it.
She was spending time with you, though, wasn't she?
Has that sort of been a kind of just a drifting apart rather than anything in particular happening?
No, it was specific things happening. It was my decision to terminate the relationship when I could no longer cope. That was before she fell in love with Ken.
Cope with
jealousy.
It's just so strange to me, Eric, because last year things were completely switched around. I mean, they look that way to me anyway.
There are two theories about what to do when somebody you have a relationship with is falling in love with someone else. One theory is that you should try and become friends with that person in order to avoid being jealous. The other theory is just to let it go, to let what happens. And I believe in the latter. The former just doesn't work for me.
I think it would work for me. Because when a man I care about is sleeping with a woman that I care about, I just don't feel very bad about it. Sometimes maybe if I'm feeling particularly lonely at the time and I see them together, I might feel a pang. But nothing like this.
But, you know, the ideal situation is to say, as long as what makes him happy makes me happy. And then the specific person doesn't matter. You just see that he's being happy, and so it makes you feel good.
That sounds great, but that just doesn't happen with me.
Well, maybe because you haven't worked on it enough yet, and also maybe because you don't have enough of a feeling or a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
I pretty much know how most women feel about jealousy, but I don't know very much about men.
I just ignore it as much as possible. There's nothing. I mean, I'm capable of preventing myself from taking action, from acting in a jealous way, which I wasn't in San Francisco. And after a while, I imagine that my feelings will lessen.
It's been like an ideological commitment for me to try to be able to share. And so with that always in the back of my mind, I really worked on it. And also because I knew that I just couldn't have a relationship with Stephen any other way. I feel that the relationship is it's different from what it was. It's just really hard for me to say if it's better or worse. Stephen, you know, has put it in terms of it being, you know, a higher plane or something. You know, it's also a real security thing that allows us to move into relationships with other people because we have each other's love.
It's going to be interesting to me to see what kind of patterns develop over the next 5 or 10 years. Because I don't feel we've reached any kind of stability in terms of social patterns.
We may never.
I'm very interested in the experiment they're conducting here. I'm very interested, perhaps skeptical of some things I see, but I certainly think the idea of developing better patterns of relating to each other and getting more meaning from work, these are certainly very desirable goals, and so I'll be watching with interest how this community develops. Gardner's just been here for, what, about
9 months?
9 months. And of course he was interested before he came, so I wasn't really surprised that he joined the community. In fact, I was rather glad that he had. Well, I certainly like the openness of the people. They're a very successful effort, I think, to get away from some of the artificial role-playing. I suppose I might be skeptical of the idea that cooperation can become a characteristic way of reacting to others. In other words, I feel that we have to learn to deal with our hostile impulses, and I don't think we can deny them. But I think it will be very interesting to see how this works out over a period of time. Can they really substitute cooperative endeavor and positive relationships in all areas?
This is your life, okay?
Yeah.
This is definitely your life.
Oh, yes.
Can you say that it is a better life than the one you led before?
There's no comparison at all. Absolutely not. I can say I'm a professional.
Idea, yeah.
And I was a lackey, and now I'm a professional. I worked for a legal firm where I typed wills, last wills and testaments. so that rich people could turn over their money to their sons, so that their sons would be just as rich as they. Big deal. I came from a poor background. I didn't have enough money to get an education. So I didn't even have the opportunities that I was talking about most of the people who come here have. So I had nothing to lose.
In other words, your idealism has, brought some fruits also the level of
my personal life, you bet. I don't have to do any housework. I don't have to do my own laundry. I don't have to be married. I don't have to take the responsibility for raising a child. I don't have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I don't have to take a bus. I don't have to wear nylons. All these are freedoms that are not to be taken lightly. I do have to do my share of the work, but the work is varied and very interesting. Not the work itself necessarily, but the whole project of what we're trying to do. It's an elite now, but as we progress, we've got to get less and less elite. Otherwise, we've proved nothing. Certainly, I'm not interested in being an elitist society for a certain kind of elite sort of person who comes out of a certain kind of background. That's absurd. Otherwise, if that's what we were, we wouldn't be socially significant, and we hope to be. I expect to see this movement grow. In my lifetime, I expect to see several hundred members on this land and several thousand members in communes related to this commune, economically related. If we're to do that, our culture has to be strong enough so that we can transfer the basic kind of consideration and feelings that we have for one another to people fast enough to grow that fast, if you understand me.